Hi, I'm Jeremy Nicholas. Welcome to the After Dinner Show with Jeremy Nicholas. And tonight I'm joined by Geoff Ramm, who's up in the northeast. We've got Cyril Mannion, who's just near Swindon. And in Buckinghamshire, we've got Lynda Shaw. Hello. One of them is a neuroscientist. I'll unmute you all. There we go. That'll be better. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Now, one of these good people, see if you can work it out, is a neuroscientist. One of them is an expert on customer service to a celebrity level, and one is a retired airline pilot. Pick now, who you think? So Lynda's the neuroscientist, Cyril's the retired pilot, Geoff is the expert on customer service to a celebrity level. Are you all coping well? Geoff, how are you?
I'm very good, Jem. Very good indeed. How are you?
Yeah, I'm brilliant. I noticed you've got all that Star Wars memorabilia behind you. You're a big Star Wars fan, aren't you?
Just a bit. Yeah. It's this, as you can imagine, this is my office, and it's my pride and joy. So there's a lot of original signed autographs on that wall. So I started collecting about 6 years ago.
Brilliant.
And, yeah.
Fantastic. So Geoff is our Star Wars fan. Cyril, do you have any memorabilia of anything from your flying days? I can see a plane behind you. Can I?
Yeah, that's a tornado that we were given when we finished the tornado course in 1984. So I show that to my grandson every now and again. So I thought I'd bring it down tonight.
Fantastic. And Lynda, obviously, you're very prestigious now as a neuroscientist with lots of letters after your name. But before you were famous, you had a connection with British Airways as well, didn't you? Oh, hang on. Are you muted? I can't hear you. Oh, why can't we hear Lynda? She was cabin crew anyway. She was cabin crew for British Airways.
Cabin crew.
Oh, right. Yeah, there we are. What happened there? Did you unplug your microphone?
Turbulence.
Was there turbulence? So can you do all of that stuff still? And
Yeah, absolutely. And all of the things that we shouldn't do as well. It was really good fun.
Fantastic. Now, I've asked all of my guests tonight to come along with a true story, which they have to tell live. And the only rules are it has to be true and it has to be told from first-hand experience. So can I just check with you that these are true stories, not just stuff your mate down the pub said, oh, apparently. Any story that starts apparently, you think, no, that hasn't really happened. But before we get to those stories, I just want to share with you some things that have made me laugh. People send me funny things on the internet, and I'm going to share with you now. So, first of all, these are the very latest in technology. These are the new social distancing shoes. I'd love a pair of them, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And people wanting to travel so much, they don't notice that this is actually a picture of a cake. It looks like it might be the front of a boat going through some water, but it's not. It's a cake. And Geoff, you'll like this one as a football fan. I never remember which. I know it's one of the big northeast teams, but I never remember if it's Newcastle or Middlesbrough. I know it's one of the big ones.
Don't even go there.
Yeah, so Geoff's a Sunderland fan. So this makes me laugh. So Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland are to stay at home. Sounds more like the World Cup finals. Are you a football fan, Cyril?
No, I've got two left feet.
Yeah, and I know Lynda's not because she's from a family of Tottenham fans, so no connection with football at all there. This is my niece Lulu, who's lost 2 teeth this week. And the good news is the tooth fairy does work during a lockdown.
Right.
Geoff, you're the person with the still has young children. How much would you get for a tooth these days in the economy?
It's definitely a £2 coin, Jem. £2 coin per tooth.
Yeah. And do you think that we might have to downgrade that soon as we go into recession? Can you see a £1 tooth fairy on the horizon?
I think if we get into a deep recession, then we'll, especially for a molar.
Yeah, molars especially. And this picture, I can't remember who sent me that, but it's just the cutest picture, isn't it? A dog with a small dog on its back. And this is what's going to happen when the schools reopen. The kids saying, Missy's wearing my mask. Missy's coughing on me. Missy says my mask is cheap. It's going to be a nightmare when the kids go back. But this is my favorite one of the week. Mum, we need haircuts. He says, I'm dad. So there we go. And then this came today, and I've never seen this before. I trained my dog to play the trumpet on the London Underground. He went from barking to tooting in just under an hour. Now that's quality, isn't it? They don't write them like that. It's I'm familiar with the old joke about the Evening Standard headline, "Barking man marries tooting woman," but I've never seen it used like that. Good. Right, let's crack on with who am I going to pick for the first story? Shall we go to Lynda because she's got a mischievous look in her eye? Now, Lynda, when you were cabin crew, I know that cabin crew often get up to hijinks. Have you got some stories from pranks for cabin crew?
Well, we did have a very famous purser who was in charge of the cabin crew in those days. Let's call him John Smith, because I've no idea if he's still with us or if his family might recognise him. Now, John Smith used to play pranks all the time. So we were at Heathrow just before the passengers were coming on board. So we were doing our pre-flight checks. I had the rear galley, so I'm counting air larders and I'm doing all sorts of stuff like that. The girls up the front were opening the hat racks for the first class passengers. The skipper on the flight deck was there with his 4 rings and his scrambled egg on his hat. He was had a cup of tea up there and he was doing his checks as well and talking to the first officer and the flight engineer. And all was going good, absolutely fine. And then this first class stewardess, she tried to open the hat rack and she said to the skipper, "Excuse me, sir," he was in uniform, but it was sir, "Excuse me, sir, the hat rack's stuck. Can you help me, please?" So he went up to the hat rack with his cup of tea in his hand. He went, "Sure, yeah." Opened the hat rack. And as he did so, this hand came out and said, "Hello, sir, my name is John Smith. I will be your purser on this sector." The purser had hidden in the flight deck. He had wound his way around the metal bit in between of them and curled up in a ball, waiting for the hat rack to open. That was the start of 2 weeks of face aching, belly aching, laughter, like I couldn't believe it. It was the most fantastic trip. And one of the other things he did, which I'll briefly tell you about, is that in those days, there was a position called the B-bird, bogs, babies and bulkhead. So you had to make sure the toilets were dressed. You couldn't clean them, that was the bogs, because you're handling food. So you had to make sure they were dressed of toilet tissue and the like. You stood at the bulkhead for the emergency stuff going on, that thing. And you also looked after the babies in the bassinets. So she was B-bird, she was up the front. Down came John Smith with a chocolate gatto for first class. He went into one of the economy toilets and he got the chocolate gatto and he smeared it all over the window, all over the sink, all over the toilet. I'm rocking with laughter, trying not to look, because I'm now counting champagne bottles on the floor of the aeroplane, and I can't look. People kept coming down the back of the crew who knew what was happening. Along came B-bird. And John said to B-bird, he said, "Have you checked the loos lately?" She said, "Oh, no, I'll do that now." She went into the toilet and I have never heard a female swear like she did. "Dirty passengers." She was going for it, absolutely going for it. John Smith, he went, "What? What?" So he looked into the toilet and he went like that and licked his finger. She went the colour of grass. I thought she was going to vomit there and then. And that was our John Smith. That's my story.
That's dreadful.
Naughty man.
Was this the sort of thing that happened all the time, Cyril? Did you?
My flight. I ran it like a rod with a rod of iron, Jeremy.
Yeah. And what's this scrambled egg you're talking about on the hats? What's that?
But scrambled egg, the skipper, scrambled egg. The scrambled egg on his hat to show that he had all the gold stuff. And
you have to call him sir. You have to call him sir if he's got his uniform on.
We did in those days. I don't think they still do. This was 1,000 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
We still have propellers.
But of an evening when you're out for a drink and he's not got his uniform on, you don't have to call him sir. Yeah,
but you know, that poor captain, he actually couldn't fly the sector. He was so shaken up. The first officer had to take off. "I'm going to get you." That's great fun.
Oh. And you never had that happen to you, Stuart? Cyril, sorry.
No.
Stuart's my...
But I do agree with Lynda. Certainly a good crew, if it starts off well, it normally ends up with 12 days of great fun.
Yeah. Okay, so let's come to you then, Cyril. How long were you a pilot?
I started late because I was a navigator to start with. So I started when I was 31 and I finished when I was 61.
Okay. So what sort of flights were you flying?
In the Air Force, I flew the Tornado, and then with British Airways, I flew the 747 long haul, and then the 777 at the end. And then I had a glorious 5 years at the end working in India, flying the 777.
Brilliant. And on that flight, you must have met lots of famous people.
Yeah, you didn't very often meet them. We did have Colin Montgomery, for example, a golfer, and he was a nervous passenger. So he spent 2.5 hours one flight I was on the flight deck. And also Michael Palin was going to Los Angeles just before he wrote the Pole to Pole. And he spent about a half an hour up with us as well. So they were the two that I remember most distinctly.
So how does that work then? So Colin Montgomery, because he was scared, instead of sitting in his seat, he decided to come up and chat to the pilot, which would be much more likely to cause a crash for 2.5 hours.
Well, Jeremy, this has all happened, of course, before 9/11, needless to say. And one of the joys of the flight was having people up to chat to us. And I missed it desperately afterwards, but there we go. So in those days, normally it was, you'd have, once we were safely in the cruise, we'd have lots of different people coming along and chat to us.
Yeah. Monty couldn't take the pressure though, could he? Famously never won the Masters. Was top player in the world, but never won the Masters. So who was the most famous person you met, do you reckon?
Well, that was Nelson Mandela, and that leads naturally into my story. The story I was going to tell you is how I got Nelson Mandela's autograph. Now, I was the second first officer on a normal Heathrow to Johannesburg flight, and this story is from May of 1992. And the normal procedure is that the VIPs arrive at the airplane about 15 minutes before we depart. And all that happened absolutely normally. We saw the limos coming to the side of the airplane, and that was Mandela and his entourage. And they, got boarded through the jetway and made their way into the cabin. Now, during this time, it's always lots of signatures and cross checks that the captain is involved with. At this point, somebody realized, the security people who signed the security certificate realized that Mr. Mandela and his entourage had not been security checked. Now, it was a fairly straightforward procedure, really. What they decided to do was to send 2 security people up to the airplane, and they went into the business class, first of all, and asked the Mandela entourage to come to the galley where they could be frisked, and that all happened. And then one of them went into first class where Mr. Mandela was sitting, and asked him to come to the galley to be frisked, and he declined. What he actually said was, if you want to frisk me, you frisk me here in front of all the other first class passengers. Now the security person backed off, and at this point the captain was informed of what was going on below our feet. Now the amazing thing, the reaction of the captain that amazed myself and the other first officer was, his response was, as far as I'm concerned, Mandela was a terrorist. Now, we had clearly a potential diplomatic incident on our hands. So the solution actually was taken out of the captain's hands. What happened was the senior security manager at Heathrow came onto the airplane, went into Mr. Mandela, shook his hands and wished him a safe and pleasant flight. And then that same senior manager signed the certificate and we were on our way. So we made our way down to Joburg absolutely normally. And before we descended into Joburg, the other first officer and myself asked the captain, could we invite Mr. Mandela to the flight deck to watch the descent and landing? Now, he was slow in giving us permission, but he did. And we immediately asked the cabin crew to invite Mr. Mandela to come to the flight deck. And I'm delighted to say he responded immediately and positively. So he came up to the flight deck, and I was the spare first officer. So it was my really fantastic role to be able to look after Mr. Mandela as we descended into Joburg. Now, I can't describe to you what it was like, the VIP acting as my guide. As we descended over Joburg in this beautiful clear day, he was pointing out the various places he knew and why they were important to him. It was absolutely fantastic. And then we pointed towards finals and we sat down and everything was normal. And as we came to the parking stand and the airplane was shut down, the other first officer asked Mr. Mandela, could he have an autograph? And in those days, we used to carry a little notepad, a bit like Post-it notes, and just handed him this, and he wrote it down, and I got my the autograph as well. And so that was it, really. And the captain, throughout this whole procedure, never acknowledged him, didn't shake his hand at the end. So we said farewell to Mr. Mandela from the 2 first officers, and I'm delighted to say that this is the I've still got it. This is the
oh, lovely.
The what it said is, to Cyril, compliments in Mandela, 27th of the 5th, 92.
Yeah. So that was, so he became president in 94, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah. What a cracking story. I'm glad you were nice to him, and what a misery that captain was.
Yeah, extraordinary.
Yeah.
Absolutely extraordinary.
Brilliant story. Geoff, we've got some high stakes here with famous people. Can you beat Nelson Mandela in terms of a famous person you met on a plane?
Well, for me and you, possibly, Jem.
Yeah.
Well, in another south, actually, Joburg, just what Cyril mentioned there about Johannesburg. So I did a conference in Joburg, it was a few years ago now, and the conference finished, but my flight was, you know, it's like the through the night flight. It's like the really late one going out back to Heathrow. And it's about sort of 12, 13-hour flight. And the conference finished about 2 o'clock. My flight wasn't until like 10, 11 o'clock that night. So I had all this time to kill. Now, a friend of ours, Gary Bailey, who used to be the England goalkeeper, Manchester United goalkeeper, he's also a speaker as well. So and we're in the same group. And he said, "Oh, what are you doing this afternoon, Geoff?" I said, "Well, I'm just going to wait for my flight for 6 or 7 hours." He said, "Oh, the Man United Chelsea game's on. Let's go and have a couple of beers." So
I love the way you're not even attempting a South African accent. Gary Bailey says, "Oh, come on, Geoff, let's go and have a few beers."
He said, "How are you?" Because he mirrors me when we're together. It's uncanny.
Okay.
So I went to this, I don't know, it was the Rose and Crown or something in Joburg, and it was the Sunderland were playing Stoke, I think it was. So I'm texting me mate, we're getting all the score updates, and Gary Bailey and I are just drinking, and the sun's coming down, and I can't remember the full-time whistle, and I can't remember getting to the airport. But I got to the airport, and apparently as I was checking in, I said, "Oh, any chance of an upgrade? Because I've got all these points, I want to use them. I want to get some good sleep. I've had a brilliant day, great trip. Any chance?" "Oh no, the plane's full, sir." I went, "All right, okay, right. Any chance of a window seat? Because I'm just going to crash out." "Oh yes, you've got a window seat. Yes, brilliant." And I'm merry, shall we say? So I got on the plane, and I've got my boarding pass, and I'm walking down looking for the number, and I'm just looking for the window seat, and this BA cabin crew came over and said, "Can I help you, sir?" I said, "Yeah, where's the window seat?" Because it was a 3 or 4-3, yeah, that was the configuration. And I said, "Oh," she says, "you haven't got a window seat." I said, "Oh, they told me." She says, "No, that was just to get you on the plane."
Oh no!
All right, so where am I?
They're dreadful, aren't they? British Airways cabin crew, dreadful people. Never met a nice one.
I wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't,
No,
I would get.
Don't even get me started on the pilots.
But I wouldn't. No, not out of lockdown. I wouldn't go anywhere near them.
So it was 3-4-3, same formation as Sunderland have been playing that afternoon.
Middle of the 4.
Yeah.
So there's a guy on the end of the 4, empty seat, me, empty seat, and I'm thinking, "Oh, this is good. This is good." And we're literally 10 minutes from the doors closing, and this try and be nice thing came down the aisle, and it literally blocked out all of the light, and it's possibly the biggest bloke I've seen in my life. And he sat beside to the left of me, and he literally sat, and you know how some people will overspill into the other seat? So I'm sat there, my elbows just rocking away, and I was like, "Oh, this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare." But anyhow, the seat beside us was still available. I'm thinking, "Oh, close the door. I'll get into that seat. He can spill out, and I'll get some sleep." And I'm texting Haley. I'm on my phone. I'm texting. The doors are about to close, and this shadow just above us. And I thought, "Oh no, please don't be the passenger, the only one left." And I looked up and I said, "You all right, John?" He said, "Yeah, you." I said, "Oh no, great." He says, "Oh, I'm sat here." I went, "Brilliant." It was John Barnes.
Oh.
England, Liverpool, Watford, winger, superstar, John, because he works on Supersport in South Africa, and he's massive. He's shoulders. He's huge guy. So I'm wobbling on this guy. John Barnes I'm like, this is going to be the flight from hell, and we got chatting away. He was signing autographs, doing photographs. It was a lovely guy. We got chatting because obviously Sunderland fan. He played for Newcastle, so I think he was a bit nervous, but it was great. It was brilliant. And literally, as we're taxiing down, stewardess came back because she knew I was desperate to get some sleep, and she leant over John Barnes and she said, "Mr. Ramm, further down the plane, there's a window seat with your name on it if you want it." And I said, "Oh, come on." I said, I'm sat next to the king of the Maracana. I said, he's the legend. Oh, it's a good sleep. And I said, "John, it's been great to meet you." And off I went. And people often say he was no good on the right wing. He was brilliant. He had the place to himself. It was a very surreal day getting to that. But seeing your heroes, I am always starstruck, and especially with footballers, always so starstruck. And it's
but just not enough so that you'll let it disturb your sleep. No.
Desperate need of some sleep.
Okay, just talking about people on planes, Lynda, can you match Nelson Mandela's autograph? I know you have sometimes been known to ask people for their autographs. You've often asked me. I've always said no. But who on a plane have you asked for an autograph?
Do you know, I have never ever asked for an autograph in my life, but I was given one.
Ah, okay.
I was on a flight coming back from Panama, and I was down economy again in the rear galley, joy. And there was a first-class passenger up the front who was flying with her husband, and she was Dame Margot Fonteyn, our most wonderful ballerina. And I've carried lots of famous people, but Dame Margot Fonteyn was just so elegant and so beautiful on the inside and outside. She really was, and she absolutely insisted that she meet every member of the cabin crew. So when it was my turn, I went up to first class and I sat on the floor, and Dame Margaret, she sat in her chair. Her husband was next to her, who was quadriplegic. He was attempted assassination in Panama. He was a diplomat. So she dedicated a lot of her time to looking after her husband. But she sat there. She kept me there. She kept saying, "So Lynda, I've worked you out. You're Lynda. I've seen the cabin crew list. Now, what is it you do, and where do you live?" And la 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 la. She really wanted to know. And then she gave me her autograph, and I still have it.
Oh, let's have a look.
This is the first class menu. Look how ancient this is. And here is Dame Margot Fonteyn's. Don't know if you can see it. There is her signature. To Lynda.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, and I forgotten I had it, and I just treasure that. I think it's beautiful, because it represented such a beautiful woman. She's just magnificent.
Yeah, and when you said that you've carried many famous people, I didn't realize that was a service that the stewardesses had to do, actually. But I imagine because she was a ballerina, she'll have been quite light, won't she? So, you know.
This is why we're stacked, you see.
Yeah.
Cabin crew, you know, we're really strong.
I've always known you as a very strong woman, but I didn't know that you actually had to carry ballerinas on. Maybe that was part of the B-Bird shift, was it? What was it? Bulkheads, ballerinas, and something else. Beginning with a B.
Good.
Yes. Thinking all the time, Lynda, thinking all the time. So when are we going to be flying again? Let's go to our aviation expert. Cyril, how long before we're all flying again, do you think?
I think it's going to be years before we properly, until we get a vaccine, we're going to be stuck with social distancing. And I mean, airline share prices have tumbled, and you know, the fact that how many will survive? You know, you've got 95% of your fleet grounded at the moment. I think we're in for a torrid time.
I think we are. And Rolls-Royce have announced a load of redundancies today in Derby, where they make the engines, because there's loads of perfectly good planes just sitting around anyway. I'm going to go back to Geoff for another story before we finish, because it's a Disney story, Geoff. I want to hear your Disney story. But just before we do, while you were in the middle of your quite long Gary Bailey story, I lost interest a little bit and found a picture. No, I didn't. I'm joking. I found a picture that I took, because on telly now, they're showing lots of old football matches, aren't they? And it's great for me because it takes all the pressure of West Ham losing, because I know I won't watch that one because we lose. It was on a Saturday. And they showed the Arsenal-Manchester United Cup final from 1979. Do you remember that really exciting end when it was 3-2 and Sunderland got the winner at Wembley, which is not a phrase you're used to hearing?
It's a famous pub quiz question, isn't it? It always gets trotted out.
Oh, Sunderland 1979, Villa 1981, who in 1980? And of course, Trevor Brooking of West Ham United, Sir Trevor Brooking. In fact, don't drop in Sir Trevor Brooking, because I'll have to do my Trevor Brooking story. So okay, just bear with me. We'll come to you in a minute, Geoff. But just now you've mentioned Sir Trevor Brooking, I went to the same school as Trevor, not at the same time, but the same school. We had claret blazers with blue piping on it. Marvelous. What was I saying? So I was one of the commentators, wasn't I, at the London 2012, and at the Paralympics, I went and sat next to Sir Trevor Brooking. I went, hi, Sir Trevor. And I know him a bit because I used to be the announcer at West Ham, so I know him a bit. And it was during the blind football. And so with the blind football, they have the bell is inside the ball. And so the crowd have to keep quiet. Otherwise, the players can't hear where the ball is. Okay. So it was fine when it was Germany and Spain and that. And suddenly it was GB against somebody. And the crowd were going, wah! And 3 times during the game, the announcer said, ladies and gentlemen, please keep quiet when the ball is in play. Otherwise, the players cannot hear the ball. Thank you. And people would be quiet for a bit, and then they get excited when Great Britain were on the attack and everything. And every time he said it was silent, I leant across and said to Sir Trevor Brooking, it's so quiet here, Trevor. It's like watching a game at Arsenal. And he laughed, and we bonded over that moment. I thought you'd like that, Lynda, coming from a Spurs family who are almost as big a rivals. Well, they're bigger probably. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Geoff, let's go to you for a Disney. Have you got a Disney story, mate?
Oh, I've got it. Oh, hang on.
I was going to show you the Gary Bailey thing. I haven't shown you the Gary Bailey thing. Hang on.
Please do. Don't interrupt me again.
No, that was the whole thing, wasn't it? I said I want, because in that game, so I was watching this game, and it was on, one of the ITV4 or something, but it was an old game, and Gary Bailey was the Manchester United goalkeeper, and the Arsenal fans had a banner saying, Arsenal go through Old Bailey faster than criminals. Right, that's all it was, Geoff. Now let's go live to you for a Disney story.
Autograph story, because everybody's got autographs.
Oh, yeah, go on.
This is all that stuff. Carrie Fisher.
Oh, the late great.
Now, she didn't give it to us. I didn't ask it. I had to buy it. I just thought, yeah, Carrie Fisher. There you go. That's my pride and joy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like to. Sorry, Geoff. I don't like to dwell on it. But how much would that go up in value now she's dead?
I have no idea. I mean, it was a fair penny.
Yeah.
Years ago. So yeah. I don't know if I got Peter Mayhew. So there's a few of them sort of as soon as I buy it kind of.
Yeah. And just quickly before you start your story, do you think if Star Wars carries on long enough, it will eventually be as good as Star Trek?
Sorry, what?
Right, let's go for your Disney story then, Geoff. Let's see your Disney story.
Okay, Disney story. Oh man. So first time in Disney 5 years ago. So Elliot was 3, Grace was she just turned 9, I think it was.
And these are your children. You're not just making up names. These are your
just didn't take kids on a flight. And, no. So there's lots of Disney parks. Anyway, it's been to Disney. There's lots of Disney parks. Our favorite is Hollywood Studios. So in Hollywood Studios, you've got the Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster. There's the Toy Story Land. But you've also got some Star Wars stuff as well. So this was after The Force Awakens when it all got rebooted some years ago. And there's a great, it's like a museum. It's called the Landing Bay. It's like a museum, and there's loads of footage. There's characters. There's loads of spaceships. You name it. It's a museum Star Wars. It's great and you can spend hours in there. But inside the docking bay, there's 2 meet the characters. So you can either queue to see Chewbacca on the light side, or you can queue to see Kylo Ren, who was like the new Darth Vader. He's the new baddie. So one of the first days we're in Disney, we queued 45 minutes, Chewbacca, he's 8 foot tall, you get your photograph taken, you queue, and it's a wonderful experience, and he's high-fiving the kids, and everybody, it's wonderful, and you get your little wristbands and your photographs. It's a great experience, and everybody talks about the Disney experience being so authentic.
And you definitely felt you joined the right queue, because, you don't want to make a Wookiee mistake, do you?
That's actually quite good.
It is quite good. I just thought of that. Yeah.
I just went silent for a second to make you feel weird.
No, that's right. I mean, I think we all miss, the days when we used to do the after dinner show to a live studio audience. We all miss those days. In a dream I had.
That was the first experience. It was great. We did another few parks, and then 4 or 5 days later, we went back to do the things that we hadn't done. One of the things we hadn't done was the other meet the character was Kylo Ren. Another 40 odd minutes in the queue. And you're getting closer, and the doors or you go in and there's a family in front of you. So there's me and Haley. Haley's holding Elliot. He's 3 years old. He's a bit tired. Grace
Hang on,
is-
let me just do some audio description for those people that don't know. Your wife's called Haley. Yeah, and I've just done that. So because you're just dropping in names like you're telling me, but obviously I know your family. But
my wife is called Haley.
yeah,
Our
okay.
son Elliot, who is 3.
Yeah,
Elliot was being held by Haley, my wife.
yeah, and your daughter's Grace.
Grace.
Yeah.
Right. Do you want what they're wearing? What?
No, I'm just trying to be a broadcaster, not a narrowcaster. That's all I'm trying to do.
Right.
Like, keeping people informed of what's going on here, because otherwise they're thinking, "What? Suddenly it's Haley." As far as people know, Haley's got some kind of comet. Yeah, anyway, yeah, carry on. Carry on.
In the room,
Yeah.
and the family in front are getting their photograph taken, and you could just see the outline of him, and he's character, the full mask, literally the full mask, the lightsaber, the whole thing, and it was terrifying. I mean, that's without the mask, but this black, and he was 6'5", right, menacing, and they are in character, and he literally came over to the family. And he's like that. Elliot just bursts into tears. So he's just like panicking. He bursts into tears. Grace grabs my daughter, grabs my hand. She bursts into tears. Haley, my wife, she was like starting to laugh. I was laughing. I was like, oh, this is really awful. Kids are screaming. And I was like, oh my God, they are in character. This is horrible. And Haley said, look, the kids, they can't go through with this photograph. They're panicked. I'll stand up to the side behind the photographer. You can get your photograph taken with Kylo Ren. I said, okay, no problem. So I'm there, stood like that. He stood there, and he's obviously talking. You'll join the dark side. I get all this type of stuff. Yeah, no problem. Had a few photographs taken. Then I get the wristband done, and as we're walking out, so the door ready to go out the other side, he comes back, and he literally goes straight up to Elliot and says, I will find you. He started again, burst into tears.
No.
Three nights,
Yeah.
3 nights, we couldn't get him to sleep. He's going to find us. He's going to find us. And I just went,
that's no
cheers,
good,
man.
is it?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You've gone too far.
Disney experience.
Yeah.
Authentic.
Disney add up too much.
So there you go. That's the story. And I'm telling it because we were supposed to get on a flight in July and have a holiday of a lifetime, but maybe some other time.
So you were going to go back to Disney and give them your money again, even though they ruined your children's sleep patterns?
Yeah, it was only 3 nights.
Yeah.
Our patterns were knackered for years.
Yeah, crikey. But they're older now, aren't they, Elliot and Grace? I think you've said.
Yeah, Grace, our daughter, and Elliot, our son. Yes.
Yeah, they're all older now. That's good. And during that story, I'm not sure if they were doing some kind of Jedi mind control, but I fancied I saw one of the characters actually go across the screen. How did you do that? No, show us your toy. Show us your man toy that you've. Who is that then?
I said to Elliot, my son, I said, I'm going on Jem's show. Hang on.
Yeah.
I said, I need. There you go. So,
yeah. Brilliant.
The power of the darkness.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I'm not going to sleep a wink tonight now that I've seen that, and maybe not for 3 nights in a row. Geoff, thank you so much for sharing that story. Do you like a bit of science fiction, Cyril, or do you think it's all nonsense?
No, all nonsense. No, I don't.
Lynda, do you like a bit of science fiction?
Love it.
was that dead?
No, I love it. If I could see Lord of the Rings 50,000 times, I will. I've seen Star Wars I don't know how many times. I love fantasy like that.
Yeah, no, I like Star Wars. But you know, I prefer the grown-up stuff really. But there we go. Right, we've come to the end of the time. Thank you so much for all sharing. Now you'll get a chance to plug yourself if you would. You all speak professionally, and at some point, hopefully, the world's going to come back to normal, and people might want to book you. Do you want to kick off, Lynda, first of all, with how people get in touch with you and what you talk about?
Okay, I've got a doctorate in neuroscience, but I specialise in the science and art of embracing change. And that's what I do more than anything in my speaking world. So you can get hold of me at www.drlyndashaw.com, Lynda with a Y.
Yes, Lynda with a Y. That's the important bit. But well, I guess the doctor bit's important. Otherwise, you'll just go to just anyone called Lynda Shaw. Cyril, what do you talk about, and how do people get in touch with you?
Well, the most popular talk I do is called the human aspects of airline command, because don't talk about the technical aspects, because I very much like Lynda say it's the human interaction that makes it great fun. So my last gig was on the 9th of March, and that was at Newbury, and we had to sort of touch the other people with our elbows. And my next gig is on the 8th of September. All the others have so far been cancelled. And I'm available on captaincyril.biz.
Captaincyril.biz. And Cyril is Cyril.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Geoff, how do we get in touch with you, and what do you talk about?
I talk about celebrity service. I am the creator and author of Celebrity Service. And if anybody would like to look at my videos, be inspired by some of the stories, the real life stories, they can go to the mothership, which is geofframm.com. That's Geoff with an F, geofframm.com. That's me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much all for sharing your stories. It's been a bit of a flying theme and celebrity autograph theme on the show tonight. So I might have themes again in the future. Thank you very much for joining us. I've been Jeremy Nicholas. You can find me at jeremynicholas.co.uk.